Hi, I'm Dave Witkin, and this is a case study, a U.S. government case study on applying Scrum at scale to a large project. And I'll tell you a little bit about the project. Our situation was we were at a very large government agency. We were replacing a big financial management and acquisition solution. Total program costs ended up being estimated at about $2.6 billion. The solution had 100 interfaces. And there were really long value streams, meaning in some cases the number of systems to get to our systems was 4 deep. So you might start a transaction in system 1, there was system 2, 3, 4, all the way before it got to our system. So fairly complicated. And we also had a multi-contractor environment. On a lot of large government projects, this is the case. You've got a PMO vendor, you've got a system integration vendor. We had that, they were very big and well respected. They spent about 18 months just on business process reengineering and requirements. Nothing was delivered yet. 18 months. So obviously not really in line with what we think about as Agile principles. Now, those 2 contractors didn't agree on much, but they did agree that you really can't use Scrum or Agile principles on commercial off-the-shelf software. So at least they had that in common. So this was sort of our going in position. We had a challenge to convince people that using Scrum at scale could work. As a little bit more context, this unfortunately was not the first time this program was attempted. So the first attempt was in about 2004. It was a water style rollout, and they estimated the cost was going to be about $470 million. They spent only about $250 million of that before they rolled something out. It was in production about a month, and they rolled it back and went to the old solution. So this is what we would characterize as a complete failure. $250 million spent and nothing usable in production, 6 years. A lot of studies, that's what we do in the government. We look at it, write big reports. So lots of lessons learned came out of that first implementation, so we tried it again, this time new vendor. And when we did the acquisition, we looked at what do we need to do differently, okay? So again, though, it was a waterfall style rollout. The estimate was about $610 million, so the cost is going up. The project was in progress for about 2 years, and after 2 years, they had spent around $90 million and decided it wasn't going where they wanted, and they cut the project. So again, another, I'd consider a complete failure where nothing was introduced into production. The third attempt, the price is now up to 1 point something billion dollars. They spent another waterfall style rollout, that's what was proposed. They spent about $50 million and that 18 months that I spoke about earlier and still didn't have any working software. So at that point, some of our clients understood the value of Agile and Scrum, and they asked us to come in and figure out what we could do. So because so many people were not bought in, they gave us a very short amount of time to try to show the value that Agile at scale or Scrum at scale could provide. So we had about 3 months without additional money. We had to figure out what can we do in those 3 months to show the value of Scrum at scale. And what we did was look at what could provide the most effort and the minimum amount of time. So not an easy thing. I'll leave you with them. We'll talk about that some of these Scrum at scale ceremonies or events have a lot of power. So we tried to look for what are the most powerful events that we could implement. And we came up with 2 answers. The first one was the Scale Daily Scrum. We say without the daily scrums because we want to make clear we overlaid a Scrum at scale event on top of a waterfall program. So the individual teams you see around the edge there were not using Scrum, okay? But we thought there might still be value in doing a Scrum of daily scrums. So we started doing that. The other thing we did was implement a very clean executive action team. Okay? Very small, may not be as big as we'd want to do on a large Scrum at scale implementation, but effective. So we had a coach, we had an IT executive, and a business executive. And we brought impediments to them very, very quickly. They were often resolved in the same day. The Scrum of, the daily Scrum of Scrums was also very effective, so much so that the government IT executive who was involved in the project thought things were not going well at all before we started. He actually called that out, the SDS, as the reason the project was delivered on time. So it was on time. There were no additional costs, so those went well, but unfortunately the quality was mediocre. And so while I want to relay there's a lot of power in using some of these ceremonies, it doesn't mean just putting a Band-Aid on things is going to resolve everything. So we still had the typical waterfall issues where testing was cut at the end, quality was not built in from the beginning, so quality was not great. But we did show enough value in that short period of time that they allowed us to implement a phase 2 and expand the rollout to other parts of the organization. And that's it. Any questions?
Hi, Dave. You spoke about daily scrums actually added a lot of value. How was your scale daily scrum? Did you get a lot of people to get in there, or was it the entire team, or you had representatives?
Yeah, the question about what do those scale daily scrums look like, and we actually had, we did have at least one representative from, I think we had 8 different teams involved. So one representative, we did keep it time boxed at 15 minutes per day, and we allowed anybody to attend. We didn't allow everybody to speak because we wanted to keep it time boxed, but everybody, if you wanted to receive the information and find out where things were, everybody attended. Now the executive action team, they did not always attend, but the expectation was right after that call that I would get a hold of them and let them know, are there any impediments that we need their help resolving? I think it did. The question was, did those scale daily scrums whet the appetite, right, for more agile? And absolutely, I think there were a lot of doubters, especially among the big system integrator and the PMO contractor. And after they saw the power, I think they said, this is something we have to have. How can we move forward? We're going to end up right where those other programs ended up. We're going to end up being a failure, another statistics, another general accounting office report if we don't start doing something like this. So it really helped the organization get a lot of momentum behind expanding the Agile rollout.
Dave, so I have a question about the EAT. I noticed in the EAT there was a coach sitting in that role, and how did the coach help remove impediments? Or was he there to coach the 2 executives?
Yeah, so the coach in that mini executive action team was really just facilitating the process. So bringing to them, use some industry expertise and IT expertise to bring them the problems that were really most important. A lot of the teams would bring up things that maybe weren't things that executives really cared about, and frankly, weren't things that were going to stop the project from being implemented on March 26th when it needed to be done. So it was a little bit of filtering and helping make sure that the information that came to the executives was at the right level for them to act on.